Hey everybody, welcome to Sci-Fi Punks, where we talk all things sci-fi, movies, comics, video games, books. If it's sci-fi, I'm into it and I want to blab about it. And so that's what I'm going to do here. And I kind of want to get the ball rolling. I'm new to this whole thing. And so I thought I'd start off with something kind of easy, kind of simple. So I thought I would talk today about the movie Alien 3, how it is much underappreciated, extremely underrated, and kind of a masterpiece, in my opinion. See, Alien 3 was considered one of the worst of the franchise by a lot of people. It has kind of gained a bit of a cult following that I'm definitely a part of. Depending on which day you ask me, it might actually be my second favorite of the Alien franchise. The first always being Aliens, the second film directed by James Cameron, or the second Alien film, which was directed by James Cameron. That's always going to be my favorite. I mean, it's everyone's favorite. It is the correct, objective answer to which is the best Alien film. But Alien 3, I might actually sometimes say I prefer to the first movie. And I just want to start off by saying, actually, that I like all four. The Alien quadrilogy, which I have here, the four films that were released before the turn of the 21st century. I think they're all great in their own way, including Alien Resurrection. I even like that one a lot, too. I actually love all four of these films. I think they all bring something interesting to the table. They all have something different to say. They all feel like they belong in the same universe in a really cool way. But I digress. Alien 3 was released by 20th Century Fox, directed by David Fincher in 1991. And just to make this clear, I am talking about the theatrical cut of Alien 3. On this little box set here, a assembly cut was included of Alien 3. And basically all it was there was a lot of footage that was removed from Alien 3, and it's kind of thrown back into the film. It's not really professionally done. It's not a true director's cut, but a lot of people consider the assembly cut to be the actual good version of Alien 3. A lot of people say, oh, if you don't like Alien 3, just watch the assembly cut. That's a good movie. And I strongly disagree with this. I have seen the assembly cut, and it is a fun novelty. It's got some interesting stuff. It does include some cool things that would have probably been cool to see in the original theatrical release. But on the whole, I do think that the theatrical cut is awesome the way it is. Because the assembly cut, first of all, completely mutilates the beautiful musical score of Alien 3. The score of Alien 3, the soundtrack, is one of my absolute favorites. The way that it's used in the film, I think, is just brilliant. I love it so much. The assembly cut pays it almost no regard. It's kind of in the way, and it kind of ignores it and jumps around it in a very kind of annoying way. And so, yeah, that already makes the assembly cut, in my opinion, way inferior. But also does a lot of other stupid things, too, like in the original cut of Alien 3, the alien bursts out of a dog, and then in the assembly cut, it comes out of an ox, and that's dumb. It doesn't make any sense. You see the alien running around, it's not acting like an ox. And the actual chest-bursting scene is really anticlimactic in the assembly cut as well. The climax of the movie, or the final scene of the movie where Ripley sacrifices herself, I believe is way more dramatic and much more professionally done in the original theatrical cut. But those are just some of the reasons why I much prefer the theatrical cut to the assembly cut. But why do a lot of people consider Alien 3 to be bad? Like, what is it about this film that pisses so many people off? I saw the first two Alien films probably way too young. I believe I was probably like 8 or 9 when I saw them. And so I was excited to watch the third one. This was all in the early 90s. All the films had been released at this point, so I was renting them from the local video store called Saz Video. And for some reason, my mom was just like, yeah, you can watch these things. So I was excited. I was making my way through the trilogy, and I got to Alien 3, and I was really stoked because Aliens, the second film, was just so mind-blowing that I was like, wow, it's only going to get bigger and crazier. And yeah, Alien 3 did not do that. Alien 3 is, to a little kid who likes Power Rangers and Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that, everything needs to upgrade. The further you get through something, everything needs to get bigger and badder and more intense, and that's not how Alien 3 did things. There's less aliens. There's only one alien again. Instead of aliens, which has a horde of aliens, Alien 3 only has one. There's no big robot versus alien queen fight at the end. Everything is much more subdued, and it's just a big step backwards in the kind of high octane action that we got in the second film. And as a kid, that made no sense to me. I didn't understand why they would make that decision, and so I really didn't like Alien 3 when I was a kid. And I mean, that makes sense. I mean, like, yeah, I'm watching Street Sharks, I'm watching Beast Wars. Like, Alien 3 is just not going to speak to a 9-year-old. It just doesn't. But it wasn't until I was early teens that I came to revisit the film when I really started to appreciate, oh wow, like, hey, there's something going on in this movie. Like, yeah, it doesn't have the crazy action of the second film. There's not as many aliens, but the movie's doing something different. It's deeper, it's darker, it's more interesting, and that's when I started to really notice it. And then I grew a huge fondness for the film, which has remained to this day. The first thing a lot of people often comment when they say they don't like Alien 3 is that the movie kills off Newt and Hicks, these two pivotal characters in the second film. It kills them off without, like, they're not even in the movie. They get killed off screen. And a lot of people say this is ridiculous. It's way too brutal. It's too nihilistic. And it totally shits on the ending of the second film by doing this. The end of Aliens, the second film, is the most Hollywood of all of the Alien movies. Like, it's basically a happy ending, like almost like a Disney princess ending, where they beat the bad guys and they all live happily ever after. And that's the end of Aliens. And then Alien 3 comes along and says, no, fuck you, that's not how things are going to work out, and just destroys all of that. And a lot of people, that really rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And I personally love that. For me, the choice of killing off Newt and Hicks at the beginning of Alien 3 was a very fuck you Hollywood move. It was a very, like, no, this is real life. Like, this is a real story with real people and real consequences. Basically, the beginning of Alien 3 to me is saying, like, no, this is not going to be a fairy tale story. This is real life. The stakes are real, and things just sometimes go to shit for no reason. That's just how things go. And I really like that. It's a bold choice. A lot of other people point to how the director, David Fincher, disowns this film. He apparently had such a bad time making it. It was his directorial debut in Hollywood. Like, I guess he had directed music videos and stuff, but this was his first big budget, full-length film. And he had such a bad time working on it that he, like, disowns the movie and, like, won't even talk about it very much at all. And a lot of people point to that and say, see, it's proof the movie is objectively bad because the director doesn't like it. And I don't buy that argument because David Fincher is just a guy. Like, he has his opinion, and his opinion can be wrong. Like, I don't have to agree with it just because he made it and doesn't like it. Like, I play rock and roll, I play in bands and stuff, and there are a lot of songs that I have put out that I don't like very much, but other people like them. And you know what? So, like, who cares what I think? Like, if they like the song, that's awesome. So I don't really buy that criticism. What would people have preferred? The people that don't like Alien 3, what would they have preferred the sequel be? Like, would they have wanted Newt and Hicks to have survived and gone on another adventure with Ripley, and it would have been like some, like, family adventure where they're fighting the aliens? Like, they go to the alien homeworld and fight, like, a super duper queen alien, and it's a giant battle. And I just don't think that, I think that would have been stupid. Like, I think that would have been really stupid Hollywood Marvel kind of bullshit. And I think the Alien series is above that. I think it's got more to say than just amping up the action. So yeah, like, those are the criticisms that you most often hear about Alien 3. A lot of people say, like, the characters aren't that interesting, it's too dreary, and that you can't tell the characters apart. I disagree. I don't think the movie is too dreary, or if it is, it's dreary in the right ways. And I think the characters pop. I think there's a lot of great characters in them, and I think a lot of them stand out really well. There are a lot of other characters in the background that don't pop out very much because they're all a bunch of bald guys that have shaved their heads because they're in prison. And some of them blend into the background, but, like, whatever. The ones that need to shine do shine. So why do I think Alien 3 is a masterpiece? Like, is that too strong of a word? I don't think so. I think Alien 3 is a masterpiece. I think it is. I think all of the films except for the fourth one are masterpieces. The fourth one is a good movie, but it's not a masterpiece. Like, it is the most a product of its time than the rest of the series. But Alien 3, I think, deserves to be in the pantheon with the other two films as a masterpiece. Above all else, I believe the Alien series, all four of the original films, is the story of Ripley. It's not the story of the aliens. Like, it's not a monster story. It's the story of this character named Ripley and all she's going through. By putting Ripley on her own again, really just like leans into this whole story of Ripley's journey. The story of Ripley is perfectly concluded in Alien 3. Like, the story of Ripley is basically this character gets thrown into this situation and she has to deal with it. And she's basically tasked with destroying the alien species that's going to torment the galaxy. If the company gets a hold of it, who knows what terrible things will happen. So Ripley has been unwillingly burdened with destroying the alien species. And you just can see through her pain and her torment that, like, she just didn't want to be here, but she has to deal with it, and she knows she has to deal with it. She can't give up, even though she never asked for any of this. And I think Alien 3 really just like concludes her story so perfectly. It's like she thinks she's done it. In Aliens, she's destroyed the Queen, they blew up the colony, and they escaped with their lives, and she thinks she can finally have peace. But no, turns out she actually was impregnated by the very thing she was trying to destroy, and now she has to make the ultimate sacrifice once and for all to finish off the race. And she's even confronted at the end of the film. I love the ending of Alien 3. It's the climax of the movie where Ripley is confronted by the company. After all of these years, she actually comes face to face with the people that have been doing this to her. And they offer her a choice. They say, hey, we know you're impregnated with an alien, but we can save you. If you come with us, we'll take it out of you and we'll kill it for you. And it turns out they're lying, but it's tempting. She thinks about it, but she knows she can't agree to it. She knows that they're lying, and then she decides to throw herself into the molten lead. I think it just wraps everything really nicely of the franchise. Now, of course, the franchise didn't end. They did decide to keep going with it, but I actually don't think Alien Resurrection negates the sacrifice that Ripley made, and I'll get to that in a little bit. There are flaws with the film that I admit are still there. The movie is not perfect. Like, I think you could argue that the first Alien film is perfect, but Alien 3 is not a perfect film. It's got undeniable flaws that even I'll admit to. Yeah, a lot of the special effects aren't that great. People often think it's CGI, but it's not. The rod puppet effect that they use on the alien when it's like running around through the corridors looks bad. It looked bad at the time too. Like, I remember watching it as a kid and being like, whoa, what the fuck's going on with that? The pace is slow. It's not too slow for me. I'm okay with a slow moving film if it's done well. But I can definitely see it being a problem with some people. Some of the dialogue is muddled and hard to hear in a kind of a Christopher Nolan way. Like, it's just a little annoying if you're watching it and you're not watching it super loud. And yeah, there are plot holes. There are some big plot holes. The biggest being, how did an alien egg get aboard Ripley's spaceship at the end of the second film? And how did she get impregnated? Because she kills the alien queen and sucks it out into space at the end of the second movie. How does this happen? The queen could not have laid any eggs. This is a big plot hole. Yeah, it's one of those things. I just have to hand wave it away. It sucks. That is a plot hole, though. But yeah, like, other than that, like, I think that the movie, it looks really beautiful. It's shot really well. It was kind of the first time as a kid I noticed a movie as cinema instead of just entertainment. I was like, oh, like, this movie's trying to say something in just the way it's shot. It just leans into its atmosphere. It leans into its tone. And it takes itself very seriously in a way that's good. Like, it's almost refreshing. It could not be made today. If this movie had come out today, it'd be full of Marvel quips and a whole bunch of stupid bullshit. It couldn't take itself this seriously. Alien 3 leans into the gravitas of what it's trying to do, what it's trying to say, in a really, really cool way. And there's this wonderful scene where she says to the alien,
"You've been in my life so long, I can't remember anything else."
It's just this perfect kind of scene where it's her coming face to face with this thing that she's almost become so familiar with. It's almost like a friend to her now. It's just really cool, you know. It's good stuff. The movie could have been so much stupider than this. In fact, there were Dark Horse comics that were released in the 80s before Alien 3 had been made that kind of do depict what a lot of fans wanted out of a third Alien movie before it was ever made. And it is what, like, you know, it's Ripley going to the home planet with Newton Hicks and having a giant gunfight with hordes of aliens. And I read those comics and they're fun, but, like, it's not what I wanted to see for a movie. This movie did not take the easy path forward. It had a big budget. It could have done the big bang bang thing, but they decided not to do that, which I just think is really cool, really courageous, really interesting. A lot of people might say to me, well, sure, Alien 3 offered a good conclusion to the story of Ripley and her sacrifice. But that all gets negated when they made Alien Resurrection, because they basically clone Ripley and then the aliens are back and it's more bang bang and stuff like that. I don't think Alien Resurrection does anything to ruin the end of Alien 3. Because Alien Resurrection, it's not the same Ripley. It's number 8. It's a clone. The movie goes to great lengths, actually, to really kind of lay it out that this is not the same character from Alien 3. Instead, this is a different situation. And I just don't think Alien Resurrection ruins anything about the first 3 films. It's got its own problems, and I will address those maybe one day. But on the whole, I don't think that Alien Resurrection does anything to ruin Alien 3. I think all 4 of the films work really well in their own ways. Now, when it comes to Ridley Scott's prequel films that came out much later, I'm not as favorable towards those. I have big problems with those movies, but I can talk about that a different time. But yeah, I just wanted to make this video about Alien 3 and just kind of ramble on some thoughts I had about it. I really love Alien 3. I could watch it every year. I just think it's such a great movie. I think it's a beautiful film, and I think a lot of people should give it another chance. If you've only ever watched it once and you wrote it off, just try again. Just give it another chance, and don't watch the assembly cut unless you just want to have some novel fun and just kind of see it. But yeah, that's all for today at the Sci-Fi Punks. All hail Megatron.